Next week is going to be incredibly wild for Bitcoin. Could get volatile. There could be shocking events.
And we now have exactly 24 hours until a potential Bitcoin Godzilla pump. Let's fucking go. This is the final day
to buy Bitcoin.
Assuming that a strategic Bitcoin reserve actually comes tomorrow. So you have exactly 24 hours left.
Now let's take a look at the exact schedule. And what you need to know right now, the background. We also have some exciting new things. Michael Saylor is buying Bitcoin. Michael Saylor is meeting with Vivek Ramaswamy. We have hyper-bullish statements from Jeff Booth, who definitely believes that a strategic Bitcoin reserve is coming. And he explains it very clearly, that a strategic Bitcoin reserve is also coming. And he explains it very clearly. Why Jeff Booth, one of the most conservative guys in the Bitcoin space, believes that a strategic Bitcoin reserve will come very, very quickly after the inauguration. Plus, we also have a risk to consider, as we have the interest rate decision in Japan this week, that a strategic Bitcoin reserve will come very, very quickly after the inauguration. We also have a risk to consider, as we have the interest rate decision in Japan this week, and there are more and more articles and more people spreading rumors here, that the interest rates are going to be raised, and this whole thing could, the bullish Bitcoin party, if the strategic Bitcoin reserve actually comes, could put us in serious trouble because the last time Japan raised interest rates here, the entire stock market and the entire financial markets have collapsed globally. And we're going to take a look at the schedule right now, and it's going to be intense. We have so many events happening in such a short time, and that could lead to a lot of surprises. So right on Monday, the 20th, in January, we have the inauguration of Donald Trump and a potential executive order here to push Bitcoin forward. Then on the 20th, January, the resignation of Gary Gensler, the head of the SEC, who has been holding back the entire crypto movement for years. Let's just say has shifted a lot and has blocked a lot. A lot of people are super bullish about this event. Some people are more bullish about Gary Gensler's resignation than about what Donald Trump might be doing here. And that's going to be super exciting. That won't have a direct impact. So nothing major is going to happen on Monday right away. But it will have a long-term impact. I mean, what could happen? That a lot of shitcoin ETFs are going to be launched. Donald here, with Gary Gensler gone, there's going to be a lot of activity from the shitcoin crowd. That could happen. We're really at risk of entering a hyper shitcoin cycle because Gary Gensler was the last blockade. And now all these shitcoiners can just dump their scams and so on into the market, can just dump in. I actually saw a crazy video from Andreas Antonopoulos from 8 years ago, where he basically predicted this in a talk. What's happening now is that basically every influencer is going to launch their own shitcoin. And it could actually be that this happens in this cycle, that we're going to have the ultimate shitcoin cycle. And on Monday, the groundwork could really be laid here. Is that good or bad? I don't think it's that great, but I mean, everyone has to evaluate that for themselves. Then on Monday, we have the repayments for the FTX creditors who have been waiting a long time for their money. And it's also expected that maybe some of that money will flow back into the Bitcoin market. If I remember correctly, I think that would be IN. US dollars paid out. And then the US dollars could be swapped back into Bitcoin. But it's not a short-term price driver. It's more of a long-term price driver. And then we really have to be careful. It happened just one day after the inauguration. Something really, really wild. And during the inauguration, the traditional financial markets are not open. And here on the 21st, on January, the traditional financial markets will be open again. Then you can trade MicroStrategy again. Then you can trade BlackRock ETFs again. Then you can trade all the, let's say, options for Bitcoin again. And if we really assume that a strategic Bitcoin reserve will come on the first day, then the pump on the first day might not be that severe. Instead, it might not really pump until the second day, because only then will the traditional financial markets be able to pump massive amounts of capital into Bitcoin via Bitcoin, ETFs, etc. I mean, nothing is guaranteed that this is coming. I mean, it's just a probability that on the first day, a massive executive order could come right away. Could also be that later on, nothing happens at all, just a no event. But that would also mean that there could be a serious sell-off if that happens here. Doesn't necessarily have to happen on the first day, but maybe on the second day, because the financial markets will be open again just one day after the inauguration. So that's something to keep in mind. On the day of the inauguration, the markets for traditional finance are closed here. And that's really, really important. And then something big happens here on the 21st, January. So one day after the inauguration, something big is happening. And there's a MicroStrategy here. Shareholders meeting. Someone even messaged me on Instagram and said, hey, Mark, is this just a coincidence? That on the 21st, January, one day after Donald Trump's inauguration, here's the MicroStrategy shareholders meeting. And I think there will also be a vote on whether the increase in stock shares will happen. So whether MicroStrategy will be further diluted, if they can raise even more capital here to buy even more Bitcoin. Michael Saylor just announced. So he bought more Bitcoin here. And he'll announce it tomorrow. How much Bitcoin he bought here. And then we're pretty much done with Tuesday. Then comes Thursday, and on Thursday, nothing really relevant is happening for Bitcoin. Maybe we can just chill for a day. Let's take a look. Okay, so how's the market looking now? Is the sentiment more bullish? Is it bearish? And then actually on Friday, we have something crazy. And it's about the interest rate decision of the Bank of Japan, the Japanese central bank. And there are actually different reports here. Like this report here, which says, the majority of the Bank of Japan board members are set to approve a rate hike next week. So most of the people in the voting committee of the central bank in Japan are in favor of an interest rate increase, to approve a rate hike next week. So that most of the people in the voting committee of the central bank in Japan are in favor of a rate hike. And we remember that the last time interest rates were raised in Japan, here the entire global stock markets crashed, and that was simply due to the yen carry trade. So now that interest rates in Japan are higher again, capital flows from countries where the interest rates are lower in the country where the rates are higher and a lot more. Do we really need to go into detail about that now? How exactly the carry trade works here? But in the end, Japan can really make this happen. That global stock markets are crashing. We've seen that, and now Bitcoin is also under pressure. Because Bitcoin is also connected to the global markets. And we definitely need to keep that in mind. But there are other voices now who then, for example, say, no, they will catch up on the interest rates. Definitely lower them or keep them the same. This is just panic mongering to shake people out of the market, to create some unrest, to create volatility. I can't read the minds of the central bankers. I'm not exactly a Japan expert or anything. I'm just saying, keep it in mind. In Japan, it's always like a ticking time bomb that's lurking in the background. Japan is really in a very, very tight spot here. The real estate market here is really a huge Ponzi scheme, the economy and so on. At the same time, raising interest rates could strengthen the currency again, which might actually be necessary under certain circumstances. And that's why it's really, really exciting to keep an eye on the whole thing. So that means you have the rough timeline, and now you know exactly what's going on here. And it's likely that a lot will be decided here on Monday. Whether it's leaning more towards bullish or bearish, or if it's just going to be a no event and we just keep moving along. And now I actually have something exciting here. Comment read. I always read the comments you guys write down below on YouTube. So Spielsatzig21 wrote here. One post and the Trump meme goes parabolic. Now imagine he would announce the strategic Bitcoin reserve tomorrow. So what he's basically trying to say is, hey, Donald Trump is doing some kind of meme coin, and this meme coin is basically the craziest meme coin of all time. And the meme coin goes absolutely through the roof. And now just imagine, what happens if he doesn't launch a meme coin here, but instead launches the strategic Bitcoin reserve? What will happen to the Bitcoin price? If we just anticipate this a bit and, let's say, take only 20 or 30% of the hype from the Trump meme coin and project that into the strategic Bitcoin reserve here. Then the Bitcoin price is somehow, who knows, within a day by at least 30, 40, 50,000 US dollar higher. Then we definitely have the ultimate Godzilla moment here, and will Bitcoin definitely be shot off to Valhalla. But you really have to look at the whole thing realistically. Whether it actually happens is still unclear. It's also unclear whether the hype around a strategic Bitcoin reserve will be just as big. Like with this Trump meme coin. I don't get it. Why are people hyping up a meme coin like this? But yeah, that's just how people are. There were even people who said at times, wow, Michael Saylor is really missing the point. By focusing so much on Bitcoin, you'd much rather be making meme coins here, because the upside is much higher and the risk is much lower, and so on. But in the end, I think it's all just talk. You really should focus on Bitcoin here. And all this meme coin stuff and so on, that's just hype phases. Just take a look in 5, 6, or 10 years and see what's left of the meme coins. Then you'll see there won't be much left. And then Vivek Ramaswamy posted an interesting picture here, together with Michael Saylor. So now the Department of Government Efficiency definitely has direct contact with Michael Saylor, and probably also used this time with Michael Saylor. Like basically here, Vivek Ramaswamy or The Department of Government Efficiency here is about orange pills. That's really, really interesting, especially since there are still no pictures of Donald Trump with Michael Saylor. So Michael Saylor was indeed at Donald Trump's crypto ball. That also happened at the ball, but apparently he only met with the people around him. Vivek Ramaswamy and those kinds of people, but he doesn't seem to meet with Donald Trump directly. I have no idea what that's about. Feel free to drop your reasons in the comments below. Now there's a huge excerpt from Jeff Booth, where he argues why a strategic Bitcoin reserve will come very, very early. So maybe not on the first day, but definitely here, maybe in the first few months or weeks.
Do you think we're going to get a strategic Bitcoin reserve and that the government is putting a plan in place to create a Bitcoin-backed dollar in the same way we had the petrodollar that the countries are now moving away from?
Do I think that's going to happen? Absolutely, I think that's going to happen. Someone has to do it. I guess Trump will really do that during his presidency, because if he doesn't do it, then it's going to be a joke for his presidency, because he will do it. Printing so much money or having a deflationary spiral. And that's one way, printing money into something that brings peace to the US citizens. And if he doesn't, other countries won't either. Now we're in this liquidity crunch. And at a time like Carrie Leopard's, a new book, The Big Print, might only be launched in time so that it can be read before the big print can be read. Oh God. And so, relative to the money that's being unleashed at crazy rates, will Bitcoin go through the roof? Because it's also the only non-counterparty risk unit in the world that's tethered to the other system, and there will be a supply crunch in it. You might see some fireworks this year, but through the US printing, they're gaining the advantage of the rift. So I suspect that's going to happen. I suspect that will happen early. Trump's term, again. I can't say for sure, but if I'm measuring probabilities, it seems like the natural thing that they have to do. And if they don't, this is just game theory at the nation state level now. And someone is going to do it.
Wow. So he's saying here he can't guarantee it, but they really have to do it. If the US doesn't do it, then someone else will. It's basically just right here. Game theory that's playing out here. And he has a very, very interesting approach here. So he's saying it's definitely going to happen, and it's going to happen relatively soon. Will it come on the first day? Of course, he can't say that here, but it has to come relatively soon. The sooner, the better. And he's basically saying here's something very, very interesting. And he's basically saying that Bitcoin has no third-party risk here. That's why Bitcoin is going to explode in price, because everything else has. A third-party risk is going to explode sooner or later. And now he's talking about the big print. And this is a concept from Carrie Leopard, who says that there will be another big money printing machine. So a big money printing spree. I don't know how to translate it. That means they're going to massively lower the interest level again. There will be massive quantitative easing again. And in this last big print, the currency will completely collapse. And here Jeff Booth is simply saying that you can now use this money printing to create wealth with this money printing. So we're basically printing money to create wealth from it by pouring the printed money into Bitcoin. So he's saying that Bitcoin is basically the tool here to get us through the big print, which definitely has to come and will come. Because the currency is basically on the brink of collapse here, at least. Through Bitcoin, we still have the lifeboat. How to basically do it here. You can hyperinflate the dollar into Bitcoin. And this is definitely a very, very exciting scenario that Jeff Booth is laying out here. He says here, we're seeing something like hyperinflation. He's not saying it outright, but that's the gist of it. And then the dollar will basically be hyperinflated into Bitcoin. And then you basically have the advantage of having the hardest money in the world here. Then you've basically achieved a reset. And when the reset happens and the dollar might eventually be abolished, or you create a new dollar or a $2, or something like that, then at least you have a very, very solid Bitcoin foundation here. If you're super bullish right now, if you want to front-run Donald Trump here. And the Bitcoin executive order, I'll put a link down below to 20.1. Bitcoin, how you can easily, simply, and safely buy Bitcoin. Tickets with the code Bitcoin Hotel. Get up to 20% off the fees when buying Bitcoin. And amidst all the commotion, you always have to keep a cool head and really focus on self-custody here. So don't just leave your Bitcoin on one. Leave it sitting on an exchange, but it's best to withdraw it. I always recommend a Bitcoin hardware wallet from Trade that's super simple and really secure. Here you are protected. From hackers, from third-party attacks, just like Jeff Booth mentioned, that sooner or later, we will have third parties here. That will fail here. Will fail. And with a TREZOR hardware wallet, you just have a massive advantage. Here, with the code Bitcoin Hotel in lowercase, you also get 10% off when buying one of these TREZOR hardware wallets. Let me know what you think about the current movements. Peace out.